All right, what we got? Recall to me, what is a function? What do you remember about what a function is? I already got one volunteer. I need some more. I need more. We'll start her. Go ahead with Dummy.
A set of inputs and some outputs.
Okay, inputs and outputs. Should be able to add to that. What else? What's special about it? What is it? What does the graph look like? How do we tell if something is a function? All of that stuff.
The negative and positive.
Right. Has a domain and range. Good. These are all good points. Add to if you don't have. Anybody else? What is a function? Mohammed.
Have a negative or positive.
What do you mean negative or positive?
Like, say you see the graph. It could be.
Okay. You're talking about the graph of a function can be negative or positive.
Yeah.
Guys, we're transitioning to group talk. Only one person should be talking at a time. Anybody else? Function. Does anybody remember how we look at a graph and tell if it's a function? I know it's been a while. What is that? Yes. Vertical line test. Absolutely. What does the vertical line test say? Does anybody remember? Gabby. Right. Good job. Say it again louder. Right. It can only hit at one point, and that's how you know it is a function. On the other hand, a one-to-one function, does anybody remember what that is? It's kind of directly related, but it uses a different test to determine. Yeah, okay, so it has to have an inverse. Awesome job. Yes, ma'am. Horizontal line test, and that's what you were saying. You gotta have some confidence. So the one-to-one function, both of them are spot on. Number one, it must have an inverse. In order to determine if something has an inverse, it has to pass the horizontal line test. Okay, horizontal line test. I want you to draw a small sign graph on your paper. Doesn't have to fill up half the paper, can be in the margin. I just want you to draw your axes like a cross, X and Y, and then draw what you feel like is sign. Okay? Couple periods, not just one. I'm going to put mine on the backboard. This is what I should see on your paper. Something like, right? And I'm just going to extend it this way too. And we'll call it sine X, just so our future selves knows what it is. First of all, show me on your paper, through one instance, that sine passes the vertical line test. Show me. In one instance, show me that sine passes the vertical line test. I see sine, but I don't see the vertical line test. Good. I see sine. Well, actually, that looks like cosine. You know how? Because it goes through the y-axis. So I want you to label it cosine. It's okay that you use it. Label it cosine. So I should see a vertical line go through your graph. Yeah, let me see your vertical line. Good. Okay, so is sine a function? Yes, say it again, Nancy. Is sine a function? Yes, sine is a function. Muhammad, how do I know that sine is a function?
It goes through the X and Y axis.
No, what's the test that we just said we need to use? Did you do it on your paper?
I think I wrote it on my chart.
You don't have any notes in between. Is it these? Yeah, take them off. How do we know that sine is a function, Chris? Medrano.
doesn't pass for the line test.
It doesn't pass, you're saying it the wrong way. So what you want to say is,
Like it doesn't touch the vertical, like the vertical line you draw, it doesn't, the graph itself does not touch your, the same point, right?
right, exactly, that's what I want to see. So, up front, I'm not fighting for your attention. It doesn't pass, I'm sorry, it passes the vertical line test because it doesn't intercept this line, this vertical line that I'm drawing, more than one time. It only hits it once. Now, I want you to do the horizontal line test.
Whoa.
Anywhere. Same graph, yep. Horizontal. You can use dotted lines for these just to distinguish them. Anywhere. Horizontal line test. How many times can it hit? Once. How many times does sine or cosine, in your case, hit? How many? I heard 4, I heard 1. What's the right answer? Infinitely many. I didn't hear you. Infinitely many. Okay? It's not going to stop hitting it because if I continue to go across, it's going to still hit it no matter where I am. Okay? Now, what we have to do, what our challenge is, I need you to tell me how do I fix this graph so that it passes the horizontal line test. Okay? And you should be able to tell me based on a video that I sent, but based on your lesson that you did without me. And I see some hands, I'm just giving everybody time to think. What do I need to do to sine or cosine in order to make it pass both tests? Yes, Ray, what you think? Well, before I can do that, because I cannot make it an inverse if it doesn't pass the horizontal line test. It must pass the test first before it will have an inverse. So right now, as it stands, it cannot have an inverse. I have to make it pass the test first. How do I do that? What are your thoughts? Yes. Restrict the domain. Now, a lot of you don't know what that means, so you just need to write it down. But she is absolutely right. Restrict the domain. And that is what you should have learned in doing the assignment that I gave you last class. So, if I say that this is 2 pi, this is pi, this is 0, of course, and this is pi. At what point do I need to cut this graph off in order to make it so the horizontal line is not intercepting more than once? What part should I be erasing? And these are just guesses. I don't expect you to get it right. We're just going to talk through it. What part can I cut? Give me some guesses. I want to erase some stuff off. So what part am I going to cut off from this graph? Joe, what do you think? Okay, anything after pi over 2? Right here? Okay, so I cut that off. But even now, if I do the horizontal line test, I'm still going to hit twice. Oh, you said pi over 2. Pi over 2, got it. So pi over 2 is in between pi. So I'm going to cut right here. And he said negative pi over 2, which is right in between 0 and pi. So right at the tip of here. Negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. That way when I do the horizontal line test, there's nothing to repeat because I'm cutting off half the curve. Right? I don't even know how that happened up there, but it's starting to irritate me. Stop talking, be quiet. All right. So, in order for us to take the inverse of sine, we need to restrict the domain 2, negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. That is an important statement. You need to know that. Otherwise, sine does not have an inverse at all. That's the only way to make sine have an inverse. In order to give sine an inverse, we have to restrict the domain. In order to have an inverse, you got to pass the horizontal line test. Sine does not pass the horizontal line test. Only between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. That's the only way it passes. So for sine, the only part that has an inverse is in between those two domain points. What about cosine? I want you to draw cosine, and I want you to tell me what are your thoughts about how to restrict it to make it pass the horizontal line test. Feel free to do that with the person next to you. Maybe someone draws it and you determine where to cut it off, or you do both together. I don't care. You have about 4 minutes, draw cosine, and then tell me where you think we need to restrict it. Should be a rough draft. It shouldn't be spot on. There we go. Cosine x. So start off by drawing cosine. Just a sketch. And then start thinking about what parts can I cut off so that the horizontal line test will pass. You can circle that point. You can like cross it off with like a zigzag if you want. If you have a pencil, you can erase it and starting to see. We're going to do this next class with a dry erase board, so it'll be slightly easier, but I wanted to introduce it now so you have an idea of what you're doing.
I don't even know.
Start guessing, just cutting some stuff off.
I'm thinking, like, what you said.
You got to know what these points are. You got to put the points there, and that way when you finish, you know where you cut. You got to know what 0 is, what 1 is for cosine. So cosine is 0. I'm sorry, cosine is 1, 0, negative 1, 0, 1. So this is 2 pi. This is pi. Right? This is 0. So you got to know where you're cutting. So what are your thoughts? Shamar, you got an idea? Where should I cut? Where should I cut cosine?
You should cut cosine anything behind the negative.
Behind the in the negative section? Okay.
Or
Good. So let's try that. Let's start there. Anything negative, he said cut. Done. So now I got my horizontal line test going through from here to here. Okay? Or even from here to here. Where else do I need to cut? You should clearly be able to see that. What other side? From what to what? Absolutely, from pi on. Right. So now it passes the horizontal line test. Shamar told me to cut the negative. Nafemi told me to cut from pi on. So what is the domain in order to create an inverse for cosine? Raina? 0 to pi. And so this is what we're going to write. X has to be between 0 and pi. For here, X has to be between pi over 2, negative pi over 2, and pi over 2. That's the domain. We say domain like that, D, like that. The only thing I expect you to do now is understand why we're doing it. I don't expect you to remember the numbers yet. I don't expect you to even know how to restrict the domain on your own. What I need you to remember is that you need to restrict the domain and why you need to restrict the domain. So, with that being said, I want somebody to summarize for me. Think about it for a second. Why do we even need to cut off the graph? Why is that necessary? 10 seconds. Good. Lelise, tell me your thoughts. Yes. Why do we need to pass both of those tests? Right, so we can create an inverse. Good. So she said, we need to restrict the domain so it can pass both tests, horizontal, vertical. It needs to pass those tests so that we can create an inverse function. That's the only way. If you don't do that first, then we cannot start graphing an inverse because it doesn't have an inverse right now. Make sure you know that. While I was gone, there were a few things I asked you to do, and I just want to make sure that we're good to go on our folder. So number one, you should have in your folder the quiz that we did, the any 10, graph any 4, inverse of any 2. That should be in your folder. Okay? That's about 30 points. I don't remember what I actually said, but I know how I'm going to grade it. So please make sure that's there. That's a lot of points. That's an easy A, because we did almost all of it together. Am I right? Okay. The next thing that I asked you to do was everything that was here. So number one, you should have notes on, where's the paper? You should have notes on that paper that I gave you. I think it's right here.
Oh.
Here it is. Inverse notes. You should have notes on this paper. Make sure that it's in your folder. If you can't put it in your folder because it's in your notebook, then make sure you show it to me sometime after school so I can grade yours immediately. You don't want to miss out on that. That's number one. Of the notes, I'd rather see it. You can send me a picture, and that way I know you turned it in on time, but then you need to remember to give it to me. Okay? Notes. Number two. Yes. Number two. Page 696, 1 through 10, answers. Yeah, just because it was like fill in the blank or something like that. Got it? That should be turned in. I'm looking for all of this no later than Friday. As long as it's in your folder by Friday, then you will still get full credit. The last thing is the flex book number 1 through 7. And that is here. Flex book. Numbers 1 through 7. Okay, does anybody need that? We don't want anybody, yes, we don't want anybody to have any issues this quarter. It's crunch time. We don't need any mistakes.
Yes.
1 through 7. Any questions about what I'm expecting to see in your folder?
Nah, bro.
Anything other than that needs to be taken out and put in your binder. Because if I see it in your folder, then why am I going to go through the hassle of checking it when you haven't even cleaned out your own folder? You don't clean out nothing. So why check it?
Put the corrections to the quiz with that.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
All of them together.
I already did mine.
Perfect. Okay? So there is no homework other than to make sure that everything is turned in by Friday.
Okay.
When I say Friday, I mean after Friday. Don't ask me about it at the end of the quarter. Don't ask me about it later.
For the green packet,
I don't have a preference. Some people do Cornell, some people do regular notes. What I don't want to see is that you wrote everything down that you read. I want it to be in your own words. Anybody need the inverse paper for the notes? Yeah, it's on the back. Yes. You see it, Louise?
No.
Where's the paper? Notes and examples. Notes and examples for that package. Then textbook 1 to 10. If you need to take a picture of this, this won't be here on Friday when you come back, so, because it's due Friday.
Good luck. I said good luck.
I'm not sure, they keep doing testing and booting us out, so I don't know.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna be here that day.
This PowerPoint is what we're about to go through next class. I'm going to put this PowerPoint on BCPS and I'm going to put it on my website. So
That's what the outfit.
if you need it, it'll be there.
That's what the outfit.
Questions?
My shoulder.
No, I said in case you will have
Look
it.
at the height difference.
Okay, just the front.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah, don't copy. Write it in your own words with your thoughts. Right, I said in that chart. Yeah.
See? Yeah, you had to get up.
Clean your area, please. Make sure your chairs are pushed in.
I be so like, yo, what's up, yo?
Back in
Very much.
the bin. Yeah, I'm going to be checking everybody's stuff in everybody's phone. Glenn, you put your folder back.
Yeah, I put it back. Look.
Chris, did you put all that stuff in there?
You can say, hey.
What's wrong with you, Chris? Huh? Just hold it and then wait for it to turn blue. Right? Just love it. It's what?
I did Chris first.
What?
Yo,
Huh?
I think that girl was me. I did all of the first month. Hey, it's me. I could hold that. Just to look at it. You said no.
You put your stuff in your folder.
Look. This time.
Yeah.
Take my folder home.
Why do you want to take your folder home?
Because I gotta do the 1 through 10.
Well, why don't you just do 1 through 10? Why do you have to
And put
take
it
your
back in
folder?
on the front.
Yeah.
Alright, good.
Don't take your folder home.
Might be here.
So everybody gonna start off good, huh?
I hope so.
I thought she said no.
All right, Raina, see you in class. Yo, it's something in your classroom for a second.
What did you do?
I was right. Bruh. I'm a help because I want an A, you know, so I'm a help. Don't report cards come out tomorrow.
Yes.
Oh damn. I failed. It's like nah.